Good morning. Thank you for joining me on Your Health Matters. Today, we will be discussing bicycle safety, bike helmets, and head injury prevention. Before I introduce my guests today, I would just like to discuss for a moment about bicycle safety in New York. Each year in New York State, 50 residents are killed in bicycle crashes. Almost 2,000 are hospitalized, and of those, 38% of those receive a traumatic brain injury. In Suffolk County, 75 people per year are hospitalized with moderate to severe injury after a bicycle crash. When bicycle crashes occur, the brain is susceptible to injury, and that is why it is so important that a bicyclist wear a helmet. So today, the purpose of today's show is to inform parents about bicycle safety, the importance of wearing helmets, and how to prevent head injuries. And our guests that we have today are Deputy Sheriff Thomas Indence, who is with us once before to talk about child safety. I thank you so much for coming back. And Jane McCormack, she's a nurse from the Trauma Program Manager at Stony Brook University Medical Center. So thank you. I welcome you both to the show. And we obviously have some important things that we'd like to discuss, and I will show to everyone here that we do have some visual aids that we'll be bringing out from time as the show goes on. So can you tell us a little bit about the laws in New York State and in Suffolk County?
In New York State, any child under 14 is required. They have to wear head protection. They have to wear a helmet. Here in Suffolk County, it's under 18, they should be wearing their helmet to safely guard their head. We always tell kids when we talk to them about wearing the helmets is that, you know, you fall down, you hit your arm and you break it, you know, you could fix that. Right. You know, you fall down, you hit your brain and damage your brain, you really can't fix that. So to just show them that, you know, you have to wear the helmet. Right. Have to wear it.
So it was a good thing that in 2000 that Suffolk County passed that law to increase the age range.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And that's not just for bicyclists. That's for inline skates.
Right. Riding the scooters, the inline skates. I mean, you have to protect what you have.
Right.
So, yes.
Okay. If I could just add, I think the thing is that the law is intended to help guide us with keeping our children safe, but everybody who's on a bicycle or on rollerblades or on skates or going, the rule is if you're going faster than you can run, you should protect your brain with a helmet. Yes. And parents need to be role models to their children. So your child is just as likely to sustain a significant brain injury when they're 18 or 19 or 20 as they are when they're 10 or 11. Right. So if you get in the habit of always wearing a helmet, you're liable to keep your whole family safe for longer.
Well, and that's something that, as you said, being role models, that parents can just incorporate into the lifestyle and explain to children. Yeah. The children aren't that too young for you to explain to them why it's necessary for them to wear a helmet, not just because of a law, but because they need to protect their brain.
Plus, setting that good example. They see you wear the helmet, then they'll wear the helmet. So, plain and simple. Right?
It just becomes the expectation.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So, okay, despite the legislation, then we kind of jumped into exactly what I was hoping to be talking about. Brain injuries are the most serious injuries in most sports. So can you discuss how helmets can protect our children's heads and adults' heads?
Our brains. Yeah, so let's use a visual. This is my favorite helmet. This is my brain helmet. It reminds us that it looks like a brain because that's what your helmet is doing. And that's what we try to talk to children, very young children. Like you said, they can understand that their brain is very important and that they only have one brain and that it can't be fixed if it's injured. So helmets in general reduce the risk of brain injury by about 85%. There's no guarantee. You can fall, you can still injure your brain, but statistically it's going to be a much less significant injury. And that's what we're trying to prevent. Brain injuries have lifelong consequences. So like the sheriff said, you know, an arm is broken, it's fixed, but a child with a brain injury could have lifelong problems. So that's what we're trying
Yeah.
to prevent.
And so even though some people might think a helmet is expensive, it actually is insurance to help prevent getting a brain injury that could then end up causing.
Great way of looking at it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It really is.
Can you explain a little bit about how the brain moves within the skull?
Sure, I didn't bring my brain with me, but our brain is protected on the outside by the skull, but within the brain it jostles around and can move a little bit. So in a crash or even just a fall from the bike, the brain then bounces off the inside of the skull, and then it can bounce up on the other side. So a relatively minor event can have some significant effects on the brain. We teach, this is a little helmet, a little brain helmet, egg helmet, that we take out to schools as part of the Safe Kids work from Stony Brook Children's Hospital. We visit a lot of kindergartens in our community, and we have the children put the egg, and we put one egg in the helmet, and then they drop them. And obviously the egg that's not protected breaks, and the egg that's in my little homemade egg helmet survives, and then we can, it's very effective for children. I have children come up to me years later saying, "You're the egg helmet lady, I remember you." So, this is something visual like this, or a parent could even do this at home, just drop one egg onto the floor and drop one egg onto the couch. Yeah. The one on the couch is not going to break, but the one onto the ground is going to break usually quite significantly, and the children really get that message.
That is a great visual aid. I appreciate you bringing that. So the helmets do absorb the impact, and they can reduce the severity if there is an accident. So can you address some of the things that that you have seen with regard to, bike versus, vehicle accidents, and how the importance of the helmets?
I've yet to come across an accident where the bike won against the car. It doesn't happen.
Exactly.
So when you're out there on the road, you expect people on the road to notice you, and they don't always notice you. So what you wear should come into play. If you're riding at nighttime, you should have white light on the front, red light on the back with your reflectors. Wear light-colored clothing so that the other motorists can see you. And the biggest mistake people make out there when they're driving, and bicyclists, sometimes the people on the bike just assume that the driver is going to see them. And that's not the case. And next thing you know, there's an accident and somebody's going off to the hospital with some serious injuries.
Yeah.
So
almost even like it's defensive bike riding, just like we teach defensive driving.
Absolutely. I mean, just like with motorcycles out there, everyone says, watch out for the motorcycles. That guy driving that motorcycle is trying to watch out for everybody. Because, same thing for a bicycle.
We have a lot more bike paths in Suffolk County over the last, I would say, 5 or 8 years. There seems to be more, but
they're growing.
Most of our bicyclists are riding on highways and on major roadways, and so I think the message is that they are driving a bicycle on a road, and they need to then follow all the rules of the road.
Yes, that is one thing.
And that's the big challenge.
Yeah, that's one thing that most people don't know or realize when they're riding their bicycle. You're supposed to abide by all the same vehicle and traffic laws that a regular car would. If you come to a stop sign, you're supposed to stop. The red light, you're supposed to stop. You're supposed to signal when you're making certain lane changes. And a lot of times people don't do that. They're off.
I wonder even if I'm hoping that gets taught, but I remember learning about how to turn, put your arm up to go right, because I used to cycle a lot. Yeah. But I don't see people doing that, which, and then all of a sudden, the next thing you know, they're darting out. So, motorists need to be careful, but we also need to teach how to correctly use a bike. And so then now I wanted to just discuss the helmets themselves. Okay, so wearing a helmet does reduce your chance of injury, but the helmet does have to fit properly. So, Deputy Sheriff, would you like to talk about the program that you have at the Sheriff's?
That one's in the bag, so.
Yeah, well, what ends up happening is what the parents need to know, especially with the bicycle helmets, is how should the helmet fit? And what we try to teach them at our bicycle rodeos, because that's one of the first things we do, is we check, make sure the kid's helmet fits right, is if you look at a helmet, you're going to have these straps that come around near the ears. You want to make sure that they line up with the earlobe. That it's not off, it's not crooked, just like that. All right. You want to do the 2 fingers above the brow. All right. If the helmet is tucked back high, like sometimes these kids wear, it's really not serving its function to protect the head. Also, you want to make sure that it's securely on the head. You want to be able to maybe get about 1 finger in there. If you get more than 1 finger in there, it's too loose, right? And then it's not protecting. You want to add anything?
Right. No, I think that's great. I think the common mistake is that a lot of people wear the helmet back too far.
Oh, yeah.
More like a
All the way back,
sunbonnet.
right?
So we talk about that the front part of the brain is a very important part of the brain, and wearing the helmet straight and down low over the forehead is a very important piece.
Well, and nowadays too, they have so many different kinds of helmets. I mean, that one's beautiful, you know, bright pink stars on it. But
The kids
I mean,
love that.
yeah. So I think that, you know, it's easier to get a child to wear a helmet now than it might have been years ago when there were less designs. But with regard to the design and the fit of the helmet, you did say it needs to be like one finger under.
Yeah,
one
on the
finger
chin strap, you want to make sure that it's tight and that it's lined up under the chin, and that you could only maybe get 1 finger in there. You don't want anything more than that, because then it's not going to be tight enough and secure.
Okay. And then you briefly, I'll have you talk about the ABCs, but first I wanted to ask Jane, what other helmet tips with regard to, we were discussing earlier about replacing?
Oh, so a helmet should be replaced if it's been in a crash. I mean, every time your child skins his knee, you don't need to replace the helmet, fortunately, but if the helmet shows any sign of damage, or the helmet and the child went to the ground such that you took them to the doctor or brought them to an emergency department, that helmet should be replaced, because the inside styrofoam or that shell could be cracked in a place that's not visible. So that's always recommended to do that. And otherwise, in general, probably every 3 to 5 years. You know, helmets are relatively inexpensive these days. The idea that we'll buy one and pass it down through all 5 kids is probably not the safest, because that helmet's just taken some damage over the years. So,
Absolutely.
yeah. Parents ask me, like, which is the best helmet? And I think the answer to that is twofold. You need a certified helmet, so they have to, and I think all the helmets sold in the United States nowadays are certified by the appropriate safety agencies. But the real answer is it's the helmet that your child will wear. So let your child pick it out.
Right.
And if they need 3 of them, 1 for the skates and 1 on their bike, that whatever it's going to take, these are $15. They're not a lot of money. Get them and just make them available so that it's the norm on your street, that everybody knows.
So it's just like, if it's winter time, it's cold out, you're going to put gloves on. You're going to go ride your bike, you're going to put your helmet on.
Exactly.
So, okay, could you discuss the ABCs at the Sheriff's Office?
Sure. In the Sheriff's Office, we also go out to the community. We do bike rodeos. I know when I was growing up, you know, law enforcement used to do bike rodeos. So we're bringing all that back to educate the children and let them know. When we do our bike rodeos, the first thing we do is make sure the helmet is good. We check that. If the helmet is no good, we have on site some supply that we get through New York State Government Safety Traffic Committee. Every year we apply for a grant, and graciously for the last probably about 4 to 5 years, they've been awarding us these grants that we purchase helmets to give to the children in case their helmet doesn't fit right or they can't afford a helmet. When the ABCs, because it's very easy to remember, A, when you're checking your bike, is A for the air, B, the brake, to make sure that the brake works, and C, to make sure that the chain is not too loose and it's lubricated so that it doesn't fall off while you're riding your bike. So we try to make it a fun thing. We set up different stations that they can ride through, avoiding obstacles. They learn how to do the hand signals to let the other drivers know when they're turning, when they're stopping, and things like that. It's a lot of fun, and it's another program that the Sheriff's Office offers for free. So. And that's you can find out more about that by going to the website that we have. SuffolkSheriff.com.
That will be on the screen.
And you can see all the different programs that we do. And like I've said previously, 99.9% of the programs that the Sheriff's Office does are totally free to the public. The Sheriff makes sure that we provide that for the community.
And that's very, very important. So for a recap, we want the family to try to establish the habit early and to be role models. Can you again just emphasize how important that is? But then I also want to address what happens if a child is in need of a helmet, and how that can be provided. In a situation where maybe they don't have an intact family that can afford to go out and buy the helmets. So.
Right. So I wish I had a fund, but I personally don't. But we do have some funding sources for helmets through the Sheriff's Office, through the town of Brookhaven.
Yes,
also
absolutely.
has a program as well. I would say also another option would be through the school system, through the social workers. Mm-hmm. The social workers in the schools can usually find some resources for something as important as a helmet.
Right.
And then sometimes agencies such as Safe Kids can do some things on small scales, unfortunately not on large scales.
Mm-hmm.
But I would reach out through the social workers or through the township that they live in. That would be a good start.
And we will put these websites up on the screen as the show ends. So model the behavior, wear the helmet yourself, have your children wear it. What is it about rewarding them for use? I had seen.
I just think that parents need, setting this expectation that this is what we do in our family, and rather than yelling if you didn't wear the helmet, it's like, hey, you did, great job. Mm-hmm. I have parents say to me sometimes, oh, Jane, what do I do? My son won't wear his helmet. I say, well, don't let him ride his bike. I mean, this has to be an absolute. Mm-hmm. You don't want to negotiate this.
Right.
You don't want to start with, well, in the driveway on Tuesday, it's okay. Mm-hmm. This is all the time, every time, and I think that if parents start that when their children are young, or start it consistently, that children, they understand boundaries, they'll totally respect it. And then it can become the neighborhood expectation. Mm-hmm. Hey, everybody, my mom's a freak about helmets, everybody has to wear one, right? they turn around and it becomes the norm on this block, everybody wears one,
wearing a helmet.
So
could you again review now, you had mentioned earlier that a child less than 1 year of age.
Yeah, less than 1 year old should not be on the back of a bicycle. It's actually against the law. It's in there. Not to mention, it's just totally unsafe to begin with. But people aren't familiar with that.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So. Okay. But in New York State, the age limit is 14.
14 in New York State. It's 14.
And then Suffolk County,
they have to wear. In Suffolk County, it's up to 17. Mm-hmm. That they have to wear the helmets.
But you all agree that everybody should be wearing a helmet. Everybody who's on a bicycle should be wearing a helmet, right. or any other scooter or anything along those lines. And so then you had discussed earlier about wearing reflective clothing. Do you have anything final, any final thoughts on proper usage of bicycle safety?
I like to say common sense stuff, but learn from last time, it's not always that common.
Right.
But yeah, it comes down to just, being safe out there. Use a little bit of common sense. Don't wear dark clothing at night, obviously. Those kind of things. And even though you don't think it might be cool wearing a helmet, you have to weigh it out. Is it better to have some kind of brain damage, or to maybe protect your head, because you need it for the rest of your life. Right. You need it.
And that's what you see at the
That's
trauma
what we see,
center.
Unfortunately, is people that made the wrong choice at the trauma center. Right. So make the right choice, protect your brain every time out, and it'll be good for you and for your family.
Okay. And now, Deputy Sheriff, I did want to give you a few minutes. There's an open house on Sunday.
Yes, the Sheriff is having a community event, an open house at the Suffolk County Sheriff's Office, 100 Center Drive out in Riverhead on this Sunday, the 28th. It's going to be from 10 to 3 p.m. Come out, see our equipment. We have a bike rodeo right there set up so the kids can actually participate and learn different skills. We have a drinking and driving simulator. We have the Sheriff's Emergency Response Team doing demonstrations. We have K9, everything. It's a fun-filled day, so come on out.
It's a family event.
Family event.
Bring your children, and interactive, and And we're hoping that we have good weather for that. But I think this.
So.
I'm very thankful that the sheriff is doing this for the open house, and I think it's going to provide a lot of useful information. So I hope that as many people as possible can come out, and I do plan on being there. So I'd like to see some of the things. So we're getting close to wrapping up. Do you have any final thoughts, Jane?
Final thoughts. I guess I would just mention that there's so many different types of helmets out there now. We brought some with us, bike helmets, all the various sports. You know, one of the things with children to get them to wear helmets is talk about role models, you know. All of New York rejoiced last night when Derek Jeter played his last game at the Yankee Stadium, and he was wearing a helmet when he did it, you know? So I think that parents and leaders should just take the opportunity to point out safe behavior of our star athletes and use those as role models for our children, and so that they can remain safe and live long.
Excellent. One of the things that we did at Suffolk County Sheriff's Office is, besides doing these bike rodeos to educate the children the importance of wearing the helmet and obeying all the rules and getting better practicing on their bicycles, we also went out to local businesses such as like McDonald's, and we told them what we were doing, and they gave us these free hamburger coupons. So a lot of times when we do bike rodeos, after the kid goes through the entire bike rodeo, we reward them with a free hamburger at the McDonald's. I mean, kids love hamburgers, especially McDonald's.
All right. Well, but the rodeo sounds really good and informative and fun, and for the entire family. So I'm glad that you offer that service. That is our show today on bike safety and head injury prevention and the need to wear bike helmets. And I would really, again, like to thank my guests, Jane McCormack, from the Trauma Program Manager from Stony Brook University Medical Center, and Deputy Sheriff Indence from the Suffolk County Sheriff's Office for providing us with excellent information. And all of the websites that we've discussed will be available on the screen. So thank you so much. This has been Your Health Matters with Tracy Tripuck. I hope that you join us again next week. Thank you.
Thank you.